My name is Josh Hacko and I'm third generation watchmaker. My father was a watchmaker, my grandfather was a watchmaker, and they're both still alive. I started hanging around them when I was about 10 years old. They live in the same town and they actually have two shops, and they were for at least 30 years competing with each other. The grandfather was doing mainly Swiss watches and my father was repairing Russian watches. My grandfather was in his late 70s. My father combined two shops in one, and that shop is still in business. I got into watchmaking because I had no choice. That was when I was about 15, 16 years old, and that happened again when I was about 50 years old. When big brands like Rolex and Cartier told everyone, every watchmaker in the world basically, and especially in Australia, that Australian watchmakers are not good enough for them to work on their watches, and they restricted supply of spare parts. Overnight, not a single watchmaker in Australia was able to access spare parts. At 50 years of age, you are at the peak of your watchmaking career, and at that point it has become obvious to me that I would not be able to continue watchmaking unless I start my own brand. That was the driving force to continue tradition, not just my family tradition, but 700 years of watchmaking. I had to start my own brand and start making my own watches. They said three things. Number one, that we are too old to be trained, that we are too dumb to be trained, and that we are not willing to invest into tools and machinery. Because it was a big insult. Maybe I'm too old and too dumb, but there is a next generation of watchmakers. That's my goal, to create an environment that will allow young kids to be trained as watchmakers. That's the ultimate.
My name's Josh Hacko and I'm a fourth generation watchmaker. Would come back after school and look at Dad behind the bench and wonder what he was doing, because I was probably way too small to see what he was actually tinkering at. Towards the end of high school, I realised that it was something I could do for the rest of my life. I didn't really know for sure, but that idea spawned in my head, and I was thinking maybe there is something more to this. Dad does the design and assembly and final adjustment of all the watches, and I do the mechanical engineering. And that includes everything from the design inception, so you might get a sketch, you turn that into a CAD file, an actual engineering drawing, and it goes all the way to the end to a product ready to be assembled. You begin where you land. No one's ever going to teach you how to manufacture a watch. It's the most secretive industry. All these Swiss watchmakers and German watchmakers and Japanese watchmakers, they're very, very protective of their craft, understandably. They don't reveal anything that they do, and they don't tell anyone why they do things. The person that manufactures the machine itself might show you how to run the machine, but they can't show you how to make a watch part. And a watch part is very, very different from a dental part or a medical part that these machines are usually capable of making. So it was a lot of trial and error. There was a lot of R&D on a kind of like a company level, but also on a personal level. You have to change the way you approach everything. In the milling process, when you talk about the space between two holes, we talk in microns. That determines the depthing of the gears, how well they mesh. If they mesh too deep, they crunch, and if they mesh too far away, you lose efficiency and your watch doesn't keep time. This depthing we keep to a tolerance of about plus or minus 2 micron, 2/100ths of a human hair. It gets a bit crazy because you have to start taking into account things like temperature. Holding the part for too long warms it up, expands the material, and you've overshot your tolerance. Or the temperature of the room that the machine is in. If the whole machine grows by 2 microns, then you're out. The most enjoyable part of the process is the hand finishing. I think there's immense enjoyment in seeing it come together, and there's immense enjoyment in manufacturing, the actual art of milling and the strategies that you do behind that. But the hand finishing is really, really special because it's your opportunity as a human to differentiate this part from every single other part that you've made. It's unique, it has character, you breathe life into it. The only other person that's going to see it is the watchmaker that pulls it apart in 50 years.